NFXL back with another NFXL podcast, and this is going to look at another State of the Franchise address, episode 25 of the 32. It looks at the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears were undoubtedly the surprise success story of the 2025 season. In a tough NFC North, they were expected to finish bottom of the standings, but a series of miraculous wins saw them win that divisional title, then progress to the divisional round only to lose to the Rams in overtime. Now they will need to build on last season and will get the tougher schedule as divisional winners rather than the one they got last season, having finished bottom the season before. And now everybody knows about them too. They're not going to be a surprise to anybody. Everybody's waiting for them, particularly in the NFC North. So, what were the strengths last season, and how do they need to optimise them whilst improving in their weaker areas? Those are the questions I'll seek to provide answers to here. And let's start with the quarterback position. Caleb Williams showed last season that he could emerge as one of the league's premier quarterbacks in the coming seasons. But in his second season, he had one of the lowest pass completion percentages of any starting quarterback. So, what looks good on the surface, just beware, buyer beware, as they say. On the positive side, despite that low completion percentage, he has not thrown picks, just 13 in 34 regular season games across 2 seasons. Although he did throw 5 in 2 postseason games, which could come back to haunt him down the line when people start putting these new quarterbacks under more scrutiny. All of a sudden, like CJ Stroud, they say, "Oh, look, he does this." So beware of that. Um, he also played behind a much improved O line last season. He was sacked just 24 times as opposed to the horrendous pounding he got when taking 68 sacks in 2024. Some of that reduction will be down to him improving his release time and gaining greater pocket awareness in his second season. Going forward, he needs to improve that completion percentage. It was 58.1% last season, dropping from 62.5% in his previous season. If he can set a new career high in that category next season, that would be a significant step forward. For instance, looking at his 58.1 and 62.5 of his 2 seasons, that compares to the top end quarterbacks career completion rating: Joe Burrow 68%, Justin Herbert 66.5%, Patrick Mahomes 66.2%, Aaron Rodgers 65.1%, Lamar Jackson 64.8%, Jalen Hurts 64.4%, Josh Allen 64%, Matt Stafford 63.5%. So Stafford's a bit more of a gunslinger type, so we will allow cut him a little bit of slack. But really, what I'm saying about Williams is that he needs to get into that sort of at least mid 60s percentage rate if he can. So getting into those sort of numbers has to be the objective for Williams. If he is to become the elite level quarterback those guys have been. The Bears ranked 10th for pass offense last season. With further development from Williams, they could push to be a top 5 unit in that area next season. And I'm going to have a cup of coffee. At running back, the Bears ranked fourth for run offense last season as DeAndre Swift and rookie Kyle Monangai, with some assistance from Williams here, led the way. Swift and Monangai combined for 1,870 yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground, and added 463 yards and a single touchdown as receiving backs. Both will be back for 2026, and that should ensure the Bears retain a potent threat in the run game. At wide receiver, no Bears wide receiver recorded over 700 receiving yards last season, although Rome Odunze did miss 5 games and would have gone close to the 1,000 yards with a full season. Rookie Luther Burden had a good first season with 652 yards, whilst veteran DJ Moore led the wide receivers in yardage with 682. Olamide Zacchaeus also chipped in with 313 yards and a pair of touchdowns. That quartet combined for 16 touchdowns, which is on the low side for a receiving group. With a full season from Odunze and a second-year improvement from Burden, the Bears might hope to increase the output from this quartet from the 2,308 receiving yards and 16 scores of last season to say let's aim for 3,000 yards and 20 scores in 2026. Zacchaeus is a free agent they will need to re-sign, though, with Odunze and Burden having plenty of upside. Link that with improved accuracy from Williams at quarterback and a strong run offense means the Bears could have one of the most potent offenses in the league next season. Now, cap space wise, they haven't got a lot to work with right now unless they rejig things a bit, which most teams tend to do in terms of existing big salaries. Draft pick wise, they've got a standard set, basically one each round for the first few rounds. Tight end, let's move on to that. And they also look to have drafted a potential star in tight end Colston Loveland last year. He led the Bears in receiving yards um, from this position with 713 and also registered 6 touchdowns, with Cole Kmet adding 347 yards and a brace of scores. Both these guys on board for 2026, another strength area for the Bears. Offensive line, as I said earlier, this O line took a major step forward in 2025. When we look at teams, or so many people look at teams' previews, reviews, and they just look at the quarterback, wide receivers, running backs. Oh, that's all they need to look at. These guys in the trenches learn the lesson from Seattle on the defensive side and the offensive side to an extent. These guys in the trenches make a huge difference, and this is where the Bears took a big step forward last season, and it came in this O line. The dramatic reduction in sacks of Caleb Williams and the run offense moving up from 22nd in the league to 6th are measures of how much this unit improved last season. Bringing Joe Tooney in from KC was a huge part of this. Second round draft pick Ozzy Trapilo had a strong first season alongside him on the left side of the O line. Jonah Jackson, who joined from the Rams, and Darnell Wright also gave them a strong right side. And Drew Dowman, who was added from the Falcons at centre, was a fine anchor for this unit too. All 5 of these are back for 2026. The Bears do have a couple of depth guys hitting free agency, but with the starters all in place, it pretty much looks good here for next season for the Bears. I apologise, I've just noticed the sun's starting to shine through the window, so you've got a bit of two-tone effect on me, but hey-oh, we'll just plough on. Defensive tackle, with pretty much all the offense intact and looking good for next season, the focus for improvement looks to be far more on the defensive side for the Bears. They ranked 26th in the league for defense last season. At defensive tackle, Grady Jarrett, Andrew Billings, and Gervon Dexter, manned those positions last season. Whilst Dexter posed a threat as a pass rusher, none of these were great against the run. Billings is now a free agent, and replacing him via an early draft pick who was adept against the run would be a good move for me, particularly with Jarrett now being 34. They did draft Shamar Turner last year, but he made little impact before an ACL injury ended his season early, so I could see him going back to the draft again at this position. On the edge, the Bears recorded 35 sacks last season, but only 18 came off the edge. Montez Sweat having 10 of them. Austin Booker and Dayo Odeyingbo had 5.5 from a combined 18 games. In a full season, they could combine for 8 or 9, but added to Sweat's numbers, that is still on the low side of what a top team would want in this area. They brought Joe Tryon over mid-season from the Browns, but he didn't record a single sack and is now a free agent. So replacing him via the draft and what looks like a loaded class at edge could be a good idea for the Bears. Inside linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Noah Sewell, and DeMarco Jackson were the principal contributors at inside linebacker last season. Edmonds missed 4 games and Edwards 7, which didn't help them in this area. When healthy, these two give the Bears 2 good, if not elite, inside linebackers. But Edmonds is apparently seeking a trade, so that could open up a need here for the Bears. Although with Jackson now a free agent, and like I say, Edmonds entering a contract year and seeking a trade, they could well be active looking for inside linebackers or even 2 this off-season. At safety, the Bears secondary gave up plenty of yardage and touchdowns last season, but led the league in interceptions. So getting a better balance between ball hawking and improving their coverage in general must be another Bears objective for next term. Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Jonathan Owens, and Elijah Hicks all hit free agency this off-season. So the Bears pretty much have a clean slate to work with at safety. Byard had a very good season making the Pro Bowl, but he's 32, so he's not a long-term answer here. Brisker had a decent season and he's younger, but will come at a higher cost for a team that does not have much cap space to work with. Tough choice for the Bears, but given their cap situation, it is likely only one of these will be back. Gardner-Johnson saw plenty of time at nickel last season, and his versatility may get him a new deal with the Bears. The other 3 served as depth guys last season, so are less impactful free agent decisions for the Bears to make. Adding at least one safety this off-season, again the draft might be the most likely route, has to be on the agenda here. Moving on to cornerback, Nahshon Wright was another who made the Pro Bowl last season, but this came after 4 almost invisible seasons with the Cowboys and Vikings, and he is now a free agent. So can he repeat his efforts at 2025? The Bears will need to be highly confident he can to pay him the amount he is likely to want in free agency. I suspect the Bears might not take such a gamble. Apart from Wright, Jalen Johnson played in just 7 games and Kyle Gordon made just 3 appearances at nickel. They also have Tyreek Stevenson to call on. Johnson and Gordon were both big performers for the Bears in 2024, and Stevenson is a solid performer too. So those three could, in fact, form the bedrock of the Bears' cornerback personnel if Wright does move on. Again, though, an addition via the draft could enhance this unit. Special teams. Torrey Taylor had a solid season as a Bears punter, whilst Cairo Santos did not have a great campaign, but both look set to continue in 2026. Kick returner Devin Duvernay is a free agent, likely to be re-signed, you suspect. If he's not, the Bears will be on the lookout for a replacement, maybe later in the draft. So to sum up, the Bears are pretty much good to go on offense, but expect additions in pretty much every area in their defense via the draft and if free agency if they can find room to do so. But improvement from Caleb Williams and the young receivers will give them plenty of offensive firepower. But it is the defense that needs to show significant improvement if the Bears to mount a serious postseason run next time around. But it could be that they and the Lions are best placed to battle it out for the NFC North, although don't rule out the Packers. I'm dubious about the Vikings, as I've said before, but it's going to be a tough old division that, and certainly the Bears are going to need to find their defensive improvements if they're to retain that title with a tougher schedule. So that's it for the Bears. Right, that's 25 down, 7 to go. Buffalo are up next, and I'll be back with that one later today. See you soon.